for our speaker today. Dan from the Ohio EPA is going to talk about avoiding Ohio EPA violations. He's going to talk about proper management of fluorescent bulbs, batteries, electronics, and aerosol cans. And we are very excited. Dan, if you want to go ahead and start sharing your slide, you can jump right in there. We are very excited for Dan. Now, one thing I will tell everybody, if you look at the very bottom of your screen, in this function, there's a reaction. It's a little smiley face with a plus. So if you hit that button, you are able to clap or give a thumbs up or do some other sort of function. So if you could give a warm Zoom clap to Dan from the EPA, I'll hand it over.
Okay, so you can hear me, right? We're good? Okay, cool. Yep. And you can see the screen, and my video is on. So I think, okay, cool. Perfect. So just so you know, my screen with the presentation's over here. So while I'm going to try to look at you, I'm also going to be referring to this slide. I'm a Luddite when it comes to this stuff. So thank you for the introduction. And let's get started. So I wanted to talk about common waste that businesses generate, and then I want to give you all kinds of resources to be able to help you deal with all of these regulations. So first off, you might be thinking, I don't generate any hazardous waste. That's like big businesses. We don't have any hazardous waste. Well, believe it or not, the 4 waste streams I'm going to talk about, certainly with bulbs, with batteries, and electronics, I'm guessing just about every business out there generates those things, and they could be considered hazardous. So before we get into that, it's important to understand the concept behind the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. This is the federal act that gave life to all of these hazardous waste regulations, but it has this concept of cradle to grave. In other words, you are responsible, and this is so weird. The feds use such weird terminology, and I always have issues with it, but they refer to you as a generator. So you're, a generator that powers up the lights in an event of a power outage. I don't understand that, but anyway, they say that you generate hazardous waste. So you're the generator. That has to be transported by a hazardous waste transporter. Ultimately, it has to go to a permitted treatment, storage, and disposal facility. But basically, you are responsible for your waste from the point that you generate it all the way through its ultimate disposal or management. So it's important that all of the waste that you generate, that you know whether or not it's considered a hazardous waste and you manage it appropriately. If it's not hazardous, certainly find a way to recycle it. Non-hazardous type of things, plastics, cardboard, paper, those are things that are not typically considered hazardous, but there's definitely an option to recycle those. Or if you're not recycling those things and there isn't a good outlet for that, you can put that in your solid waste dumpster. But if it is hazardous, there may be an opportunity to recycle it, and there may not be an opportunity, and you would have to store it at your facility for a period of time and then have a hazardous waste transporter come and pick that up. But this, from like a hazardous waste inspector standpoint, this is one of the biggest, it's the biggest violation that the agency or hazardous waste inspectors cite. And that's that's throwing hazardous waste into your trash and not having a way to prove that it's not hazardous. So you're going to see this slide a few times. And I really want to drive home this point. I was going to say this morning, but it's this afternoon. So don't throw anything into the trash that could potentially be a hazardous waste unless you have a way to demonstrate with either your own knowledge that you have documented in some way, shape, or form of the waste, that you know it's not a hazardous waste, or analytical data. It's probably the most definitive thing you can use, or manufacturer's information about that particular waste stream. So here are those common waste streams I wanted to talk about this afternoon. So electronics, fluorescent light bulbs, used batteries, and aerosol cans. So let's start with electronics. And for those of you who are maybe considerably younger than myself, I mean, I'm only 25, right? But look at that thing in the bottom. I think that's a VHS player. I have not seen one of those in a long time. And then the big monitors and TVs, we usually have all flat screens now. But University of Florida did a study on electronics years and years ago, and they ground these things up, and they were able to demonstrate that they're typically hazardous for heavy metals and primarily lead, typically used in the lead soldering of the circuitry. So if you're going to throw your electronics into the trash, you have a heck of a challenge trying to demonstrate that that's not hazardous. Short of sending it off to an analytical lab, having them grind it up and to test it. I don't recommend that you do that. You probably spend far more money than necessary. The best option is to recycle your electronics, and not just from your business, but also from your home. We're all citizens, we're all homeowners as well. And we probably all, I venture to guess, we all have some kind of electronics out there. So there's lots of recycling options for you. As long as the material is being recycled, you don't need to manage them as a hazardous waste. But if you are going to throw these into the trash, keep in mind, like I said, I think you're going to have a really hard time demonstrating that it's not a hazardous waste. So my recommendation is recycle all of your electronics, and then you don't have to worry about this. Now, before we get into aerosol cans, fluorescent light bulbs, and batteries, I have to explain what universal waste rules are. So these are a subset of the normal hazardous waste regulations, and US EPA came up with 4 of these. And so those are listed as mercury-containing devices. So that could be like thermometers, thermostats, mercury switches, mammometers, recalled or suspended pesticides. Those are, oh, you guys can see me. I can talk with my hands. That's always fun. Recalled or suspended pesticides, those are actually recalled under the federal fungicide, rodenticide, whatever. It's a federal act that regulates all things pesticides. So it has to be something that's suspended or recalled. In other words, there's something really wrong with it, then you could manage it under universal waste rules. So it's not just leftover Roundup or some kind of insecticide you have sitting on a shelf. It has to be something that's recalled or suspended. And then we're going to talk about aerosol cans. Antifreeze is another one. This is both aerosol cans, antifreeze, and paint-related waste are all Ohio-specific universal waste. So these are waste streams that Ohio EPA has decided, yes, these are things that you could manage under these reduced set of requirements. And then fluorescent light bulbs and batteries. Now, one thing, if you do manage some of these waste streams under these reduced set of requirements, you could reduce your hazardous waste requirements. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to hazardous waste, I'm going to give you a link at the very end of this that provides all of our past trainings on hazardous waste or universal waste. We've done trainings just recently on both of those, and we've recorded those sessions. So if you're interested in that, I'll provide that link at the end. All right, so let's start with fluorescent light bulbs. And I say including LEDs, and the reason is because LEDs are quickly taking over the industry for good reason. They last a lot longer, they're even brighter, they have, they use less energy, and incandescents are a thing of the past, or will be a thing of the past if they aren't already. And remember, we had those compact fluorescents. Those things have kind of fizzled out. Literally, I put a whole house full of compact fluorescents, and they did not last as long as they claimed. And then, the standard like fluorescent light bulbs that we're aware of, like you see in the picture there, or metal halide or high pressure sodium, or more of the industrial type of bulbs that you might see in a factory or in a big warehouse. So another thing I wanted to mention about fluorescent light bulbs, especially like the picture that you see there with those tubes. there are manufacturers out there that manufacture green tip tubes or more environmentally friendly. They all have mercury in them, and just because the manufacturers have found an ingenious way to get, to find a loophole in the regulations, the mercury doesn't show up as much on the test because it's more in a soluble form. They still contain mercury. So I still recommend that you manage all of your light bulbs, including your LEDs. And this is because LEDs, some of them are found to be hazardous, some of them are not. And the reviews are really kind of mixed out there. So versus trying to find documentation to keep on site and then throw these things in the trash, they still have materials in them that are easily recyclable. So to make it easier, I would recommend that you manage all of your light bulbs. And the feds, speaking of like how they call generators, they call you a generator. They refer to fluorescent light bulbs as lamps. I think lamps are something that sit on your nightstand, but whatever. So the best option is to manage these as universal waste. To do that, put them back in the same box that they came in, keep the flaps closed on the end of the box, unless you're adding or removing those bulbs. Put the date, the earliest date that you started putting bulbs in the box, because you have 1 year that you can store these on site. And then label the outside of the box universal waste lamps. Don't put hazardous waste, put universal waste lamps. The rules actually say that. And then contact whoever gets your normal hazardous waste to come and pick those up. If you are going to throw these into the trash, again, you're going to have documentation. Now, some of those manufacturers of the environmentally friendly bulbs, they do have that analytical data on their webpage. So if you do want to throw these into the trash, you can do that legally, but you're going to have to keep documentation. So print it out from the manufacturer and keep that on site. The last thing I have down there in red is I do not recommend crushing your bulbs. So there are things called bulb crushers, and they typically will sit right on top of a 55-gallon drum. It's kind of like a lid with a grinder thing and a filtration device. US EPA did a study on those years ago, and they found that, man, they did a great job crushing the bulbs. But not all of them did a great job of capturing that mercury. And the nasty with mercury is at room temperature, it becomes a vapor. And as a vapor, it loves to attach itself to porous surfaces, which could be your clothing. Then you take mercury home with you and potentially expose your family and loved ones. So again, my recommendation is manage these as universal waste. If you do have a bulb crusher, keep in mind you cannot manage them as universal waste. The rules specifically say you cannot manage them in a way that causes them to rupture, leak, or break. And obviously a bulb crusher does a really good job of doing that. And if you do have one of those bulb crushers, keep in mind that you have to then comply with the full hazardous waste generator requirements. So again, it's all about the trash. Don't throw anything into the trash unless you have a way to demonstrate that it is not considered a hazardous waste. All right, let's talk about batteries. So with electronics, you can end up with batteries. You will always end up with batteries in those electronics. And, well, not always, but a lot of our devices today have batteries in them. So those electronic related type of batteries, certainly if they're rechargeable, and this does apply for like AA, alkaline type of batteries, C or D or whatever batteries that you might have. If they're rechargeable, there's a really good chance that they would meet the definition of a hazardous waste. So same thing with bulbs. I don't recommend that you try to figure out if they're hazardous or not and keep that documentation. Just manage all of your rechargeable type of batteries. Forget that lead acid battery in the very bottom of the picture. I'm only going to talk about these electronic batteries real quick. Manage them all as universal waste. To do so, put them into some kind of container or some type of storage area. And because depending on the size of the battery, you might not want to be putting them into a container. When you do put them in a container, and I'm pretty sure this is a DOT requirement, which is carried out by the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, and they love to be referred to as PUCO. So if you ever talk to them, make sure you say PUCO. They love that. They love Make sure you tape off the terminal ends because during transportation, these batteries have been known to come in contact with each other and boom, the vehicle blows up. So tape off those terminal ends, date the outside of the container with the earliest date. Again, you have 1 year, you can keep these things on site. And then label the container or the storage area with the words universal waste batteries. Not hazardous waste, universal waste batteries. Then if you have like forklift batteries or lead acid batteries that we have in our vehicles, if you have a fleet of vehicles or you have, some other source of lead acid batteries, you can manage them under the universal waste rules, but there's an old rule that actually predates all of these regulations. And that is this old lead acid battery rule is just exchange it back with your battery supplier. You don't have to deal with any of these regulations whatsoever. All right, the last thing of the different types of hazardous waste are aerosol cans. Now, believe it or not, I told you, not believe it or not, but because you all believe it, because you were here, but I told you, you can manage these things as universal waste. Aerosol cans is one of those. This was a waste stream that Ohio EPA decided to add to the universal waste category. But with aerosol cans, an even easier thing is just to use them as you normally do. The contents are typically hazardous for ignitability because they'll ignite at under 140 degrees. So if you use the aerosol can like you normally would, you're spraying out the contents and it's empty, you can throw that into the regular trash and that's totally fine, but they're made out of metal. So I would recommend that you manage them in a scrap metal. And then the contents, you can either recycle the contents. So let's say, the nozzle becomes clogged. It happens, right? You can buy a puncturing device. Some people use a nail with a board and that works too. OSHA might have something to say about that or BWC, but that's totally fine, but you would have to manage those contents appropriately. So paint, if they do contain paint is one of those things that you can manage as a universal waste. It is an Ohio specific waste stream. But so you can manage the contents as a universal waste if you'd want to, or you can recycle it. There's lots of paint recyclers out there as well that would be happy to take that leftover paint. So if you do manage these under the universal waste rule, it allows you to collect these things and store them on site for up to a year, just like the rest of the universal waste. They do allow you to have this satellite accumulation, and that doesn't mean satellites up in sky. Satellite accumulation is talking about at or near the point of where these things are generated. So if you have like a flammable cabinet or something where you keep all your aerosol cans, and when your staff are coming to get a new aerosol can, you could have a 55-gallon drum there and put all of your old aerosol cans in there. That's called a satellite accumulation area. And as long as you don't reach over 55 gallons filled full of aerosol cans, you can keep them there indefinitely. So same thing, date and label the outside of the container with universal waste aerosol cans is what you need to write on there. Again, you have 1 year, you can keep them on site. So date it, the time when you start putting cans into a storage container. And then any of your universal waste, this is one of the benefits, any of the universal waste that you manage, that does not get counted towards your hazardous waste generator category. And if I'm speaking foreign languages, I understand. I'm a small business owner as well, and these rules are very difficult to understand at times. We have, and I was saying this earlier, we have a presentation we just did on Friday about hazardous waste requirements, and a few weeks before that, we did one on universal waste rules, and in depth of all of this, all of the good stuff. So if you're interested in that stuff, I'll give you a link at the very end. And I think Sally possibly sent out handouts for today's webinar. So you should have, and if you don't, let me know and I can get this to you, but you should have a copy of this presentation. All right, so if I've thoroughly confused you, I'm going to hopefully be able to provide you with some resources to help you along the way. So I work in the Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention, and that's a mouthful, and we love our acronyms. We call it OCAP, and I refer to the people who work in it as OCAPers. And they don't like that, but I call them an OCAPer anyway. So what we do is we're a non-regulatory group within the agency. We're not inspectors. We have no authority whatsoever. All of our services are voluntary. We're not going to show up at your site unannounced like an inspector. We're not going to cite violations. And then on top of that, all of our services are free, and watch this, they're confidential. So by law, in administrative code and in revised code, it clearly states that anything that we discuss back and forth with a business, or anyone for that matter, remains strictly confidential. And that means it's not subject to public records, and it cannot be shared with the inspectors or the enforcement staff. We'll assist any type of business out there, any size of business out there. Certainly we want to help the smaller businesses that don't have environmental health and safety staff on site, but we literally will help anybody. We can also find ways for you to avoid these regulations altogether. So there's little tips and tricks we can show you of, hey, you know, if you need this or you switch to this, you don't have to deal with these regulations. You maybe avoid a permit entirely. So that can save you money and keep you out of having to deal with a bunch of regulations. We also have a recognition program, which I'll talk about, and we give out millions of dollars a year in recycling related type of projects and equipment. So I talked about this again, all of our services are held in strict confidence. They're not subject to public records. So if we do work with you in our program and somebody does a public records request on your facility with our agency, they will not find anything about our conversations or our correspondence and email or whatever it might have been. We can help you submit any type of permit applications that you might need. We can help you with reports. Believe it or not, all permits have some kind of reporting or record keeping requirements. So it's important to read those things. But if you're not aware of that stuff, we can certainly help you to get those squared away. And I apologize, I don't know what I'm thinking with these colors. It's like Easter, and I want to dye some Easter eggs or something. I don't know. And it's St. Patrick's Day, and I chose the blue. I don't have many green shirts. That's my excuse. But I do have some green on this slide, so that's good. So we do have a $4 to $5 million annual recycling grant program, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We can also, at least right now, virtually, we can walk through your facility. If you want, you could show us your operations or show us whatever piece of equipment. We can tell you whether or not it needs an air permit or if you're generating hazardous waste. So we can help you all however you want. We can help you over the phone or email or these nifty little devices have cameras, and we can use those. Again, it's all held in strict confidence. It's not subject to public records. And then we want to recognize you for not just complying with all these regulations, but actually taking that next step towards sustainability. So how do you get a hold of us? Well, we have on our webpage, we have this Ask an Expert About Permitting and Regulations button. If you click on that, it's on the vast majority of Ohio EPA's web pages, you will see this. Click on that and you will find all of our information. We do have a hotline, and I have that posted there. We have a confidential chat feature, and we're available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So with that chat feature, I've used this a few times, like, you know, you go onto a web page and you're like, oh, I can't find what I'm looking for. And then the little chat person pops up, and of course it's this model looking person. In reality, it's probably somebody sitting in their parents' basement. But anyway, they pop up on the screen and they're like, hey, can I help you? And at first I was like, I don't know. I've actually used that feature on web pages, and it's been really, really, really helpful. And I will be the first to admit it. It's not easy to understand all of these regulations, and it's not easy to navigate through our webpage and try to find the information you're looking for. So take advantage of this chat feature. That's a way we have our OCAPers, right? We have them behind the scenes answering all of your questions Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Now you can also contact us directly. So we have strategically placed OCAPers, if you will, in each one of our district offices. And this is how our district offices are laid out. So we have 5 of them. So we have one person in our central district office that covers Central Ohio. And previous to this position, I was actually in that role. So I was the Central Ohio OCAPR for a number of years. Then we have 2 experts up in our Northeast District office. So this would cover this county of Summit County. They're in a Twinsburg office. We have Ralph Whitty, he's down in our Southeast District office. Then we have 2 OCAPers in Southwest District office. They're out of the Dayton area. And then we have 2 OCAPers up in our Northwest District office out of Bowling Green. Now you can also contact these folks individually. Now, if you look at this slide, I'm so embarrassed. I was struggling with this, and Sally, this is why I was late getting this presentation, the handouts to you. I couldn't get these stupid lines to work. So I got like these weird crooked lines on there. I apologize, I didn't mean for that. But anyway, these are the OCAPers in your particular area. So for Summit County, we have Tamara Gerard and Miranda Stockton. These staff, I have to tell you, these are the best of the best of the best in our agency. We work really, really hard to select people that have a customer service mindset and have multimedia understanding. So they understand all of these regulations and can literally help you with anything that our agency deals with. So these are the folks that you would want to reach out to. If you ever do get inspected by Ohio EPA, whether it's a virtual inspection or it's an on-site inspection, and you don't already have like a consultant or somebody that you can work with, reach out to your district OCAPR and let us help you navigate through that. Certainly if you ended up with a notice of violation letter, help you navigate through that, respond back to the inspector and get yourself off the radar screen and make sure it doesn't go any further where you actually end up with a fine. All right, so we're going to switch gear here, and keep in mind that you guys should have a copy of that handout, so you should have that contact information. So we're going to switch gears here. Now we're on the opposite end of the spectrum here. We're starting to head into spring, but I want you to, for a second, think about the forest in the fall, and all of the leaves fall off, and they decompose thanks to little microbes and worms, and they decompose and they turn into the nutrients for the next generation. So in the forest, there's literally no such thing as a waste. It's actually a resource. It continues to recirculate. And you've seen this recycling symbol. You know, many of us, we grew up with this recycling symbol. Unfortunately, though, in our society, we take materials out of the environment, we make them into some kind of product, and then we take both the byproducts from that and the product, and we throw it into the biggest hole we can find in the ground. And that makes no sense. Sustainability wise, we can't continue to do that. That's not sustainable. We've got to figure a way where we can continue to reuse the materials that we pull out of the environment. So what we want to do is we want to transition to this thing called the circular economy. So on the left, you can see the take, make, dispose type of linear economy that we have now. And then the circular economy is literally where you are, so like in a cell phone, and the manufacturer is looking at all the different components of that cell phone and thinking about the end of life and the byproducts while making this of what they can be used for. So that way the materials continue to go in a circular motion, just like the forest. See, you're pulling it all back there. So what we did was we're like, well, we're Ohio, right? We're the heart of it all. We're gonna lead the whole nation, and we're gonna create an exchange program. And this exchange program is different from most exchange programs because Ohio used to have Ohio. What was it called? OMEX, Ohio Materials Exchange, I think. But the problem is it was like Craigslist. Craigslist is not actively managed. So if you put your tricycle up on Craigslist, there's nobody behind the scenes being like, hey, Bob, I see your tricycle on there. I know that somebody over here would really like your tricycle. There's nobody doing that. So what we wanted to have an exchange system that was actively managed. There were a group of people behind the scenes, and it's all us OCAPers, so it's all confidential, but we're behind the scenes trying to hook up exchanges with folks. So you can kind of think of the materials marketplace like an online dating service for waste. So it's like Craigslist, but it's kind of like eHarmony, where we're farmers only. I don't know, whatever, I live out in the country. But it's a way for you to be able to post materials that you're having a hard time getting rid of. A lot of businesses are trying to go to zero waste, and this is a great strategy to be able to do that. And then there's other folks that are like an entrepreneur spirit. They're looking to maybe take somebody else's byproduct, uses it as a feedstock, saves them money, and it's more sustainable to be able to turn their product around. So we worked with the United States Business Council for Sustainable Development. We created the Ohio Materials Marketplace. And wouldn't you know, Ohio being the leader, other states, including a state just north of us, decided that they were going to do the same. So now I'm happy to announce there are several states that have their own materials marketplace using the same platform. And the platform now is expanded where if you join this, it doesn't cost anything to join. If you join this, you will have access to all those other states as well. As we know that exchange opportunities don't just end at Ohio's border. So we had 3 goals: create an economic value, divert materials from the landfill, and like I said, make Ohio the leader in the circular economy. So, okay. So far we have about 1,000 folks participating in this, which is fantastic. We've diverted about 3.8 million pounds from Ohio's landfills, and we've saved businesses about $250,000. So what's on the materials marketplace? Well, believe it or not, black soldier fly larva oil is on there, or was on there. What are you going to do with that? I don't know. So there's all kinds of interesting things on there. So if you're looking for, as any business, certainly if you can reduce your bottom line, you can reduce your overhead and find materials for free, that's awesome. A lot of these materials posted on Materials Marketplace are free, but you may have, some of them, you may have to pay a small fee for those. It has nothing to do with our platform. That's only between you and whoever's offering the material. But I wanted to draw your attention to the shelving on the right-hand side. So there was a company down in Cincinnati that had 5,000 of these units, and you could make them in any configuration. And they were moving to a new location, and they had a warehouse full of these, and they said, anybody wants to come and get these. So we put them on the Materials Marketplace, and they went like hotcakes. That's just an example of some cool stuff that's on here. So I encourage you to join this platform. It is free. It doesn't cost anything. The link is ohio.materialsmarketplace.org. And by the way, if you're ever looking for something on our webpage and you don't know even where to start, go to a search engine, type in what you think it's called, like if it's a guidance document or a fact sheet or recycler list or whatever, and then follow it up by Ohio EPA, and you'll probably find it. All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk about recycling and money that we have available. So we have a recycling litter prevention program that's part of OCAP. This was bolted onto OCAP a few years ago, and we stole this program from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Why? Because we saw $11 million sitting in a pot, and the powers that be were like, money, you come over here. So that's how we got this program. And then I'm fortunate enough to be working with this program in our office. So we have applications opening this fall. You apply online through what we call the Customer Support Center. And and our agency doesn't like me saying this, but I think it looks like a family bathroom symbol. But anyway, look for that symbol. See, now you're going to remember it. Now you're going to be like, oh, there's the family bathroom symbol. Click on that and you'll be able to find access to our applications, as well as other grants as well. So there's 4 different types of grant categories, and I'm going to mention all of them, but really kind of focus in on market development and scrap tires. I'm thinking that's probably what's going to apply to most of you. So community and litter is what it sounds like. So if a community is looking to get recycling containers that they can, for like curbside recycling for the residents, that's something we can help fund. If you're looking to do a tire amnesty event where you're like, hey, citizens, bring in all your tires rather than burning them or dumping them out back, they can collect them, and that's something we can help fund. Or if maybe it's shoreline cleanup, or maybe it's right now, you know, the snow leaves and you start to see the litter all over the highways, that's something we can also fund. Market development is, this is for pieces of equipment. So as many of you know, if you're like me, you order everything off of or online, and you end up with lots of cardboard boxes. Well, the demand for cardboard has gone up because of that, and many businesses generate a lot of cardboard as well. If you bale your cardboard, you can definitely make a lot more money than if you just have loose cardboard that you're trying to recycle. But those cardboard balers come at a cost, and they can cost $10,000 whereabouts, or maybe less, or maybe more, depending on the size and all the bells and whistles. But with the market development grant, if you're buying a piece of equipment, or you're looking to buy a piece of equipment like a cardboard baler, we can give you 50% off. So on the applicant match, that's what 100% means. That means you bring 50%, we bring 50%. And for whatever reason, they call that 100% match. Never made any sense to me, but that's what they say. So if the piece of equipment costs $10,000, you bring 5, we bring 5, everybody's happy. Saves you money, we're cheaper than Walmart, right? Scrap tire is the exact same, but it's dealing with tires. So if you want to, or if you're already in the business to process scrap tires and to turn them into ground tire rubber for like athletic fields, and that's why you see it in the academic institutions below. So if you're putting like a new athletic field or AstroTurf or whatever it might be, or a track maybe, or maybe it's trails or a park, that's something that we can fund. We can fund that equipment through the scrap tire grants, and you see that amount goes up to $300,000. Again, 100% match. That means 50% off, basically. And then academic institutions, these are K through 12 colleges and universities. If they're looking for, and it's a mixture of the community and litter, so if they're looking for recycling containers or signage, or they're looking for some kind of scrap tire, ground tire rubber or something to put in a new athletic field, that's where that comes in. So here are the grant money recycling specialists, and I provided their contact information. You can find all of this at recycleohio.gov. We bought the rights to that years ago. Well, I think Ohio Department of Natural Resources originally had that, and then we have kept it up. So we still have that URL. Want recognition for going above and beyond all these regulations? We have 3 different recognition programs: our Encourage Environmental Excellence, and then we have a relatively new one for education, and that's specifically K through 12, and then a brand new one that we just launched this year for communities, and I'll go into each one of these. So for the regular Encouraging Environmental Excellence Award, these are for businesses, colleges, universities, or other organizations. We want to look at, we want to recognize not just complying with the regulations, that's a given, that's the law, but going above and beyond that to become more of an environmental steward. So there's an online application. Remember the family bathroom symbol? I bet you do. So click on that family bathroom symbol, and that'll take you to this application for this as well. Applications are open year round. We are looking for applications right now. So if you're doing great stuff, or you know businesses or other organizations or academia that are doing great stuff, please submit an application. We hope to recognize everybody at a sustainability conference that we're planning for this fall. So there's 4 different levels here: achievement, silver, gold, and platinum. Achievement is more project specific. So if you did like a lighting retrofit and you switched to all LEDs, that's something we want to recognize you for. Silver and gold is more you've taken a comprehensive look at all of your operations, and the difference between the 2 of those are just scores. And then platinum is where score-wise you're already at a gold level, and you don't have to come in as an achievement and then go to silver and then go to gold and then go to platinum. You can literally come right in at platinum. But platinum, what the distinction there is that platinum is where gold wise, you're already at gold level in terms of what you're doing, but you went beyond your property boundaries. You didn't just stop at your property boundaries. So maybe you did like stream restoration, or maybe you did shoreline cleanup or litter cleanup, or maybe you do some kind of sustainable activities in your community. That's why we want to recognize you there. So the Encouraging Environmental Excellence in Education, again, is a relatively new program. And it's not so new as COVID, because you can see us all standing here with the governor on the left, and then Director Stevenson, the director of our agency, who, by the way, she's the one who started this program that I'm talking about today, in our Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention. But here we are. I think this was Earth Day 2019. It definitely wasn't 2020. But here we are at Newark City Schools. These kids, actually, the school applied for a grant, or a recycling grant, and got composting containers. And then they took all their cafeteria food scraps, composted that, turned it into nutrient-rich soil, and then provided that to the community. So, provided produce for the community. So that's a cool, that was a cool success story. Here's another one. It's an all-girls STEM school up in Northwest Ohio, where we were able to recognize all the outstanding efforts of these students. Then also there's a community one. This is brand new. And the reason I bring all of these up is all of us live in a community of some shape or form. And the majority of us, we have kids that are either in school and we know that they're doing cool projects. So that's why I bring all three of these categories up. Again, if you're interested, there is the web link. You can also go to the Customer Support Center and apply. So that is all I have. And I'd like to, the one thing I wanted to point out real quick is that trainings, any of our past webinars, go to that web link there, the epa.ohio.gov/DEFA, DEFA, and that stands for the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance. That's the division that our office is in. And then click on the training tab, and you will find past recordings, you'll find upcoming events, and then you can get registered for those, including our sustainability conference. We'll be posting that on there if you're interested in that this fall. And with that, I will stop.
Awesome. Okay. I did see, first of all, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and type those in the chat. Feel free to give a round of applause using your reaction buttons down at the bottom. That would be great. I will tell you, honestly, Dan, I didn't expect to laugh out loud a couple times during an EPA presentation. So thumbs up on that.
You know what? These are environmental regulations, and I'm a bureaucrat. So if I can take some of that stigma off of it and try to make sense of it, I'm happy to hear that I made you laugh, and hopefully a few others were able to get a few chuckles as well.
I think they were chuckling. We have a good group here, so I'm sure of it. There was one question. They asked about alkaline batteries. Is there anything around with that with Universal?
Yeah, so if the alkaline batteries are rechargeable, there's a good chance that they're hazardous as well. So, if it's a regular AA battery, AAA battery, you can probably get away with throwing them into the trash. But again, you're going to have documentation to show it's not hazardous. I would recommend that you take all of your batteries, just so you don't have to deal with that liability, and you don't have to deal with trying to figure out, is it hazardous, is it not? Where's the documentation? Is this good enough documentation? Where am I going to store it? I would just manage all of them as universal waste.
Awesome. We did get a comment from one of our members that the Goodwill accepts computer components, and they recycle everything through a partnership with Dell. So that may be one opportunity.
Yep.
Let's see. I know, just so you know, Sally will be sending out these slides and the recording of this today.
Okay, good.
And so you'll get all of those. Sometimes it takes a day or so to post out of Zoom, and then she puts it in YouTube, and Sally and all her computer techno savvy has gotten really good at that stuff. I am not seeing any other questions. Sally, has anyone sent you questions directly? Put her on the spot there.
No questions.
I can't believe nobody has questions. Let's see. Does OMM take outdated things?
Absolutely. Yeah. If somebody else can take the material off your hands, that's the Ohio Materials Marketplace. That's that online dating service for waste, right?
Yep.
Yes, they typically what's on there are things that people are having a hard time getting rid of. You don't see cardboard, you don't see plastics on there because there's already known markets out there for those. So outdated things that somebody else could potentially use, either for the intended purpose or to recycle it or reclaim it in some way, absolutely. That's a perfect fit for the materials marketplace.
They had said too, what about like obsolete keyboards or old computer parts, stuff like that? OMM, would they have use for that maybe?
You could. So what we do is we've partnered, you got to have givers and takers to make the platform work, right? So you have to have people that are willing to give up materials, and then you also need people that definitely want those materials. So we reached out to every known recycler we had a database on and said, hey, please join the materials marketplace because it's a great way for you to be able to source your recyclables. So we have a number of electronic recyclers on there as well.
Awesome. Okay. Another question, universal waste labels. Where can folks get a hold of those? So
here's the thing. As opposed to like DOT or like I said, PUCO, right? They love that. There is no official label. Literally, you just write the words on there and then put the date. And just the key thing is put the actual words on there. Don't abbreviate them. Put universal waste lamps. You might want to put bulbs because that would make sense and that's how normal people talk, but the feds want it, lamps. So put the actual words on there and then date it. There's no special label that you need.
Okay. Let's see. We all have batteries, paint, and et cetera, things like that at home. Is there any good websites to find out about recycling for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I should have mentioned that earlier. So there's a webpage called earth911.com. And you can use this for businesses and for residents at the very top. And I complained to them because I thought you guys could make that a little bit more obvious to be able to see it. And then they sent me back this snarky email, whatever. So what you do is you put in whatever you're trying to get rid of, like a computer or a monitor or whatever, just a keyword, put that in, and then you put your zip code and it'll find all of the recycling outlets in your area. If it is what would be household hazardous waste, you might be wondering, why is a household, can I throw all of this stuff in the trash if I wanted to? But as a business, I have to jump through all these hoops. Well, it's because under the Resource Conservation Recovery Act, it specifically exempts households. Why? Because we don't have enough people to manage the 1 million businesses in the state of Ohio, let alone however many people there are in the state of Ohio. So they're specifically carved out of those regulations. But yeah, go to earth911.com. And like I said, at the very top, there's a button for business. There's a button for residential. If it's from your home, click residential, put the keywords in, put your zip code in, and it'll give you all of those outlets.
Awesome. All right. I am not seeing any other questions. So if you do have those questions, Dan's contact information up. Let's see. Okay, I do have one. My kids have a pooper scooper business. We compost it for flower beds, but we have too much. Is there an option for taking that kind of material?
I don't know. You mean like on the materials marketplace? Well, I guess they're
anywhere.
Not specifying. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I tell you what, there's my contact information on the screen. So hit me up on email or give me a call, and I'll see what I can find out for you.
Awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. All right. Lots of great questions. Lots of good information. I am going to pull up, you guys got that, and you'll get the slides too. But I'm going to pull up the slide for our next speaker. Since we didn't have a wonderful picture like we had the one of Dan, Michael Tomey is our speaker next month, and he's going to be talking about bed bugs. That's exciting. So lovely bed bug in there. Hopefully they're never ever going to be that large. That will be April 21st at noon, And as you guys joined us at the very beginning, you heard us talking. We are still not sure what it's going to look like starting in July. We are crossing our fingers and very hopeful, but at this point, we are at the mercy of what the governor says and what the BWC says. So you guys will know as soon as we know. And with that, I really appreciate everybody being here, and I wish you a happy St. Patrick's Day. Please enjoy your festivities responsibly.